A split screen. Ancient stone tablets of the Decalogue on one side, a modern courthouse on the other. A piano melody transitions into a contemplative choir chant as the narrator begins. What if everything you thought you knew about right and wrong was a battleground between heaven and earth, a cosmic tug of war with your very soul as the prize? Prepare to have your understanding of morality shattered and your spirit awakened, for the story we are about to unfold is unlike anything you've ever encountered. Stay tuned until the very end. You won't believe where this groundbreaking journey leads. Like, subscribe, comment, and share this unique and speechless revelation. And join us for more heartwarming truths yet to be uncovered. For millennia, haven't we all, in the quiet corners of our minds, felt the weight of that ancient query? Is the very fabric of right and wrong a celestial tapestry, divinely spun, each thread imbued with the Creator's intention? Or are we, adrift in a morally neutral universe, solely responsible for stitching together our own fragile standards of conduct? Think for a moment. If morality is merely a human construct, a societal agreement that shifts with the winds of culture and time, then what anchors our deepest convictions? Is the outrage we feel at injustice, the innate pull towards compassion, nothing more than a sophisticated evolutionary trick? Could the profound sense of sacredness we attach to human life be ultimately arbitrary, a fleeting consensus destined to dissolve? Consider the Ten Commandments, those stark pronouncements etched in stone. Were they gifts from on high, echoing the very heartbeat of a just God? Or were they simply the best survival strategies devised by a nascent civilization? If the latter, then are they not perpetually open for renegotiation, their authority contingent on our ever-changing needs and desires? Look at our modern courthouses, these temples of earthly justice. We meticulously craft laws, debate their nuances, and enforce their dictates with solemnity. But upon what bedrock do these human-made statutes ultimately rest? If there is no transcendent moral order, no divine blueprint for fairness, are we not merely building castles on sand, our legal systems vulnerable to the whims of power and the tides of popular opinion? And what of love? That most human of experiences, that yearning for connection and self-sacrifice. Is it purely a biochemical reaction, a clever mechanism for procreation and social cohesion, or does it resonate with a deeper truth, a reflection of a boundless divine love that underpins all of creation? If love is only chemical, then what makes an act of profound selflessness any more meaningful than a purely self-serving one? The chasm between divine law and secular ethics yawns wide, doesn't it? It's not just a philosophical debate confined to dusty tomes. It bleeds into our everyday lives, shaping our choices, coloring our relationships, and informing our understanding of justice. If there is no God who dictates right and wrong, then who ultimately gets to decide? Is it the strongest, the most persuasive, the majority? And what safeguards the vulnerable when the only law is human will? This tension, this fundamental disagreement about the source of our moral compass, is not a polite intellectual sparring match. It is, as the opening suggests, a profound battle, not a battle waged with swords and shields, but a struggle for the very soul of humanity. It dictates how we understand our place in the universe, the value we ascribe to life, and the ultimate meaning of our actions. Are we answerable to a higher power, or are we the sole arbiters of our own destiny, our own morality? Our own morality? The answer to this question will shape not only our laws and our societies, but the very essence of what it means to be human. Imagine a universe where right and wrong are not etched in the very fabric of existence, but are merely the pronouncements of a cosmic sovereign. A terrifying thought, isn't it? For if goodness is simply what God commands, then what prevents even the most heinous acts from becoming virtuous with a mere divine decree? Could cruelty become kindness? Could injustice become the ultimate righteousness? Simply because a divine voice declared it so. This is the chilling shadow cast by Plato's Euthyphro dilemma, a question that has echoed through the halls of philosophy and theology for millennia. Is the good good because God wills it? A celestial fiat that arbitrarily defines morality? Or does God, in his infinite wisdom and being, will it because it is inherently, eternally good? If the former is true, if morality is nothing more than divine whim, then is our yearning for justice, our visceral repulsion at suffering, ultimately meaningless? Are our deepest moral intuitions just echoes of a potentially capricious divine will? Could the very foundations of our ethical systems crumble into dust if that divine will were to shift? It's a dizzying prospect, isn't it? A moral universe hanging precariously on the thread of divine command. Devoid of any intrinsic value, medieval thinkers grappling with this very abyss sought refuge in the concept of natural law, a profound and elegant idea. They argued that God's moral order isn't some arbitrary set of rules handed down from on high, but rather a rational structure woven into the very essence of creation, discernible through the light of human reason. Think of it. A universe imbued with an inherent moral logic, a divine intelligence expressed not just in commandments, but in the very way things are. But even within this framework, doesn't a disturbing question linger? If we can discern God's moral order through our own reason, does that diminish the necessity of divine revelation? Does it imply that humanity, through its intellect alone, could have stumbled upon the Ten Commandments, the Sermon on the Mount? Where then lies the unique authority and transformative power of God's direct word? Consider the agonizing paradox embodied in the story of Abraham and Isaac. God himself commands Abraham, his most faithful servant, to sacrifice his own son, a horrifying act by any human standard. Was this a glimpse into a morality beyond our comprehension, a terrifying demonstration of absolute divine sovereignty? Or was it, as Kierkegaard wrestled with, a leap of faith so radical it transcended the very realm of ethics, a solitary act of obedience in the face of the absurd? And for those outside the realm of faith, doesn't this story raise the most unsettling of questions? Can any divine command, no matter how seemingly cruel, demand absolute obedience? Where do we draw the line between divine will and moral atrocity? Fast forward to our modern world. When human rights activists stand against oppression, when they invoke the concept of imago Dei, the idea that humanity is made in the image and likeness of God, are they not echoing Aquinas' profound synthesis? Are they not echoing Aquinas' profound synthesis? Are they not appealing to a fundamental, inherent dignity that transcends cultural boundaries and political ideologies? This inherent dignity, this spark of the divine within each person, becomes the unshakable foundation for universal human rights. But even this noble concept raises thorny questions. If we are all made in God's image, why is there such profound inequality, such rampant suffering in the world? Does the existence of evil, of unimaginable cruelty inflicted by human upon human, not shatter this beautiful image, leaving us with a fractured reflection of the divine? And if this divine image is inherent in every human being, does that not place an unbearable weight of responsibility upon us to recognize and protect that sacred spark, even in our enemies? The debate between divine command and natural law is not some abstract theological exercise. It has real-world consequences shaping our laws, our ethics, and our understanding of what it means to be human. If our morality is solely derived from divine decree, how do we engage in meaningful ethical dialogue with those who do not share our faith? On what common ground can we build a just and compassionate society? And if our morality is solely based on human reason, are we not in danger of creating a self-serving ethics, one that prioritizes our immediate needs and desires over the long-term well-being of humanity and the planet? Well-being of humanity and the planet. Can reason alone truly inspire the kind of radical self-sacrifice and unwavering commitment to justice that we see in the lives of saints and heroes? The shadow of Euthyphro continues to loom large, forcing us to confront the most fundamental questions about the nature of goodness, the authority of God, and the very essence of our moral obligations. Are we merely following orders from a cosmic commander? Or are we participating in a divinely ordained harmony, a moral symphony that resonates within the depths of our being? The answer, or perhaps the ongoing wrestling with this question, lies at the very heart of our spiritual and theological journey. Imagine a world unshackled from the dictates of the divine, a world where humanity, in its newfound intellectual maturity, takes the reins of morality into its own hands. The Enlightenment dawned, and with it, a bold declaration. Ethics could stand alone, independent of theological scaffolding, built instead upon the solid ground of human reason. From Kant's unwavering categorical imperative that a moral action must be universalizable, applicable to all, to the utilitarian calculus of maximizing happiness for the greatest number, secular ethics promised a rational, autonomous path to a just society. But in this audacious move, didn't a chilling possibility emerge? One that the prophetic voice of Nietzsche saw with unsettling clarity? If we sever the cord that binds morality to a transcendent source, if we declare God dead in the realm of ethics, do we not risk plunging our values into a terrifying abyss of nihilism? If there is no ultimate good, no divine standard against which to measure our actions, then are all values merely subjective preferences, fleeting opinions in a morally indifferent universe? Consider the atheist's stark challenge. If our sense of right and wrong is nothing more than a sophisticated evolutionary instinct, honed over millennia to promote survival and social cohesion, then on what basis can we truly condemn the horrors of genocide? Then on what basis can we truly condemn the horrors of genocide? Is the systematic extermination of an entire people simply a less successful evolutionary strategy? If morality is reducible to the survival of the fittest, then isn't the strong, in a terrifying logic, ultimately justified in dominating the weak? Can the urgent pleas to halt climate collapse, to protect the delicate balance of our planet, be anything more than sentimental preferences if divorced from a deeper, divinely ordained stewardship of creation? Think about it. If our moral pronouncements are merely the echoes of evolutionary pressures, as compelling as they may feel, do they possess any objective truth? Is our outrage at injustice simply a biological mechanism designed to maintain social order within our tribe? And if so, why should we extend that outrage to those outside our immediate circle? Why should we care about the suffering of distant strangers or future generations if our moral compass is purely a product of our evolutionary past? Yet, even in this secular landscape, don't we witness surprising echoes of ancient wisdom? The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a document forged in the aftermath of unimaginable human cruelty, a testament to our shared aspiration for dignity and justice, is explicitly secular in its foundations. Yet, doesn't it resonate with the biblical imperative to love your neighbor as yourself? Isn't the inherent value it places on every human life a secular articulation of the imago Dei, the divine image within each person? This raises a profound and perhaps uncomfortable question. Can secular ethics, in its pursuit of universal principles, through reason alone, truly escape the gravitational pull of theological insights? Are these seemingly independent moral frameworks not, in some fundamental way, drawing from a wellspring of ethical understanding that has been nurtured and articulated for millennia by religious traditions? Is the concept of inherent human dignity, for instance, truly a purely rational construct? Or does it carry the faint but undeniable resonance of a divine spark within each soul? Consider the Silicon Valley ethics boards grappling with the unprecedented moral dilemmas posed by artificial intelligence. As we create machines that can learn, reason, and even make decisions, we are forced to confront fundamental questions about consciousness, autonomy, and moral agency. Can purely secular frameworks provide adequate guidance in navigating these uncharted ethical territories? Do we not, perhaps unconsciously, draw upon deeply ingrained notions of human value and moral responsibility that have their roots in theological understandings of personhood and creation? And what of the profound human longing for meaning and purpose? Can a purely secular ethics truly satisfy this deep-seated spiritual hunger? Can the pursuit of rational principles and the maximization of well-being fully address our existential anxieties, our yearning for something beyond the material and the temporal? Or does the human heart inherently seek a transcendent horizon, a moral framework that connects us not just to each other, but to something larger than ourselves? The rebellion of reason in the Enlightenment was a powerful and transformative moment in human history. It empowered us to critically examine long-held beliefs and to forge our own ethical paths. But the question remains, can we truly build a sustainable and deeply meaningful moral edifice on reason alone, divorced from any transcendent foundation? Or will we find, as Nietzsche ominously warned, that in dethroning the divine, we have inadvertently undermined the very ground upon which our values stand, leaving us adrift in a sea of subjective opinions, with no ultimate anchor to guide us towards true and lasting justice? Imagine holding in your hands a collection of ancient texts, revered for millennia as the very Word of God, and yet finding within them not a simple, unwavering code of conduct, but a tumultuous, often contradictory, and deeply human story of wrestling with the divine will. Biblical ethics is no neatly bound rulebook, no static set of commandments carved in stone and eternally unchanging. Instead, it unfolds as a vibrant, often jarring dialectical tapestry, woven with threads of profound faith, searing doubt, fierce cries for justice, and radical acts of love. Think of Job, stripped bare of all earthly possessions, his body ravaged by suffering, daring to hurl accusations at the Almighty himself. Is this blind obedience? Is this the docile acceptance we might expect from a divinely ordained moral system? No. Job's anguished cries, his relentless questioning of God's justice, are a shocking testament to the human spirit's refusal to surrender its moral intuition. Even in the face of unimaginable pain, doesn't his story force us to confront the uncomfortable truth that faith and doubt can coexist? That true engagement with the divine often involves a courageous wrestling with the very nature of God's justice? Then there is Amos, the humble shepherd turned fiery prophet, thundering against the opulent corruption and social injustice of his time. His pronouncements, echoing with divine authority, are not gentle suggestions. They are scathing indictments of a society that has abandoned the widow, the orphan, and the poor. Where is the simple obedience in his relentless demand for righteousness to roll down like waters, and justice like an ever-flowing stream? Doesn't his prophetic voice awaken us to the uncomfortable reality that true faith demands not just personal piety, but a radical commitment to social justice, a willingness to challenge the powerful in the name of the voiceless? Then, the figure of Jesus of Nazareth, who stands at the heart of this biblical narrative, not as a mere reiterator of ancient laws, but as a radical subverter of legalism. He heals on the Sabbath, challenges ritual purity laws, and elevates love and compassion above strict adherence to the letter of the law. Consider his encounter with the woman caught in adultery. Consider his encounter with the woman caught in adultery. The law demanded stoning, a brutal and unforgiving punishment. But Jesus, in a moment of profound moral clarity, challenges the self-righteousness of her accusers, offering not just forgiveness, but a radical reinterpretation of justice itself. Doesn't his life and teachings shatter our simplistic notions of divine law, revealing a God whose mercy transcends rigid rules and whose love seeks out the marginalized and the outcast? Think about Abraham, the patriarch, daring to bargain with God for the sake of the wicked city of Sodom. Will you indeed sweep away the righteous with the wicked? He pleads, challenging the very justice of the divine decree. Is this not a shocking display of human courage? A testament to the idea that even in the face of divine judgment, our moral conscience has a voice, a right to question. And Moses, after leading his people out of slavery, interceding with God to spare them from divine wrath after their idolatrous betrayal. "Oh, this people has committed a great sin," he cries, offering his own life as atonement. Isn't this a profound example of faithful critique? A demonstration that true leadership, even in the spiritual realm, sometimes requires challenging the very authority one serves. Paul the Apostle, grappling with the weight of the Old Testament law in light of the transformative power of Christ, declares the paradoxical truth. The letter kills, but the Spirit gives life. This becomes a rallying cry for reformers throughout history, a recognition that the essence of divine law lies not in rigid adherence to outdated prescriptions, but in the animating spirit of love, justice, and compassion. Doesn't this force us to ask, how often do we cling to the letter of religious law, forgetting the spirit that animates it? How often do we use religious rules to exclude, to judge, rather than to embrace and to heal? Biblical ethics, therefore, is not a static set of rules to be blindly obeyed. It is a dynamic, evolving conversation between humanity and the divine, a pilgrimage of moral discovery rather than a fixed prescription. It invites us not to passive obedience, but to active engagement, to wrestle with the complexities of justice, mercy, and love in a world filled with ambiguity and suffering. Consider the seemingly contradictory passages within Scripture itself. How do we reconcile the vengeful God of some Old Testament passages with the unconditionally loving Father depicted by Jesus? Is this a flaw in the divine narrative, or does it reflect the messy, evolving understanding of God within the human experience? Doesn't this internal tension within the Bible itself invite us to a deeper, more nuanced reading? One that acknowledges the historical context, the literary genres, and the ongoing struggle to comprehend the incomprehensible? And what about the uncomfortable laws found within the Old Testament? Laws that seem archaic and even unjust by modern standards. Are these to be dismissed as irrelevant relics of a bygone era, or do they offer us a glimpse into the moral development of a people? A journey from more primitive understandings of justice towards a more refined ethic of compassion and forgiveness. Doesn't grappling with these difficult passages force us to confront our own moral assumptions and to appreciate the long and often arduous path of ethical progress? Biblical ethics, in its messy, challenging, and ultimately transformative nature, invites us to a deeper engagement with the divine. It is not about finding easy answers or simplistic solutions, but about embarking on a lifelong pilgrimage of seeking justice, practicing mercy, and striving to love as we have been loved. It reminds us that the journey of faith is not a passive acceptance of dogma, but an active and ongoing wrestling with the profound and often unsettling questions of what it truly means to live a life worthy of our creation in the image of God. Worthy of our creation in the image of God. Must the sacred and the secular forever remain locked in a perpetual state of opposition? Two irreconcilable realms vying for dominion over the human heart and mind. Is the chasm between divine law and human reason an unbridgeable abyss, destined to swallow any attempt at reconciliation? Or could there exist a bridge, a delicate yet sturdy span that allows us to traverse the wisdom of the ages and the insights of contemporary thought, forging a more holistic and compelling understanding of ethics and justice? Consider the provocative proposition of scholars like Raphael Domingo, who dare to envision a theistically oriented secularism. Imagine legal systems, the very foundations of our earthly societies, acknowledging a meta-ethical role for the divine, a recognition that the ultimate source of moral order may lie beyond the purely human, without resorting to the enforcement of religious dogma. Could such a framework offer a way to ground our secular laws in a deeper sense of purpose and accountability, without infringing upon the freedoms of conscience and belief that define a pluralistic world? Is it possible to build a just society that subtly echoes the harmonies of a divinely inspired moral universe, without imposing a specific religious creed? Think back to Aquinas, the towering intellect of the Middle Ages, who believed that divine law does not supplant human reason, but rather completes it, elevates it, and guides it towards its ultimate fulfillment. Could this ancient wisdom hold a key to our modern dilemmas? Consider the burgeoning interfaith climate accords, where individuals from diverse religious traditions, alongside secular scientists and policymakers, find common ground in their shared commitment to protect the planet. Is this not a modern-day resonance of Aquinas' synthesis, a recognition that our shared human reason, when attuned to the inherent order of creation, can lead us towards actions that align with a deeper, perhaps even divine imperative for stewardship and care? But doesn't this raise a crucial question? If human reason, even when divinely informed, is fallible and prone to self-interest, how can we ensure that our interpretations of this natural law, this inherent moral order, do not simply become justifications for our own biases and prejudices? How do we guard against the temptation to project our own limited understanding onto the infinite wisdom of the divine? Consider the radical vision of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a theologian who, in the face of Nazi tyranny, called for a religionless Christianity. Was this a rejection of the divine, or was it a desperate plea to strip away the superficial layers of religious dogma and cultural baggage to reveal the raw, transformative power of Christ's love in action? Imagine a faith not confined to the walls of a church or the pages of a scripture, but one that explodes into the world, embodied in acts of courageous resistance and selfless service. Doesn't Bonhoeffer's challenge force us to confront the ways in which our own religious practices might have become hollowed out, more focused on ritual and tradition than on the radical call to love our neighbor? Then there is Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream of a beloved community, a vision of a society where justice reigns, equality flourishes, and the dignity of every human being is cherished. This was not merely a secular political aspiration. It was deeply rooted in his Christian faith, a fusion of divine hope with unwavering earthly activism. Could it be that the most powerful catalysts for social change arise when our deepest spiritual convictions ignite a passionate commitment to transforming the world around us? Doesn't King's legacy challenge us to examine how our own faith, or our own secular humanism, compels us to actively work towards a more just and compassionate world? But here lies a potentially shocking question. Have we, in our pursuit of either a purely transcendent spirituality or a purely immanent secularism, inadvertently diminished the power of both? Have we relegated the divine to an abstract realm, disconnected from the gritty realities of human existence? Or have we, in our focus on earthly concerns, lost sight of the deeper spiritual longings that lie at the heart of the human condition? Imagine a world where the stained glass windows of a medieval cathedral, symbols of transcendent beauty and divine mystery, cast their luminous reflections onto the stark functionality of a UN assembly hall, a place where nations gather to grapple with the most pressing secular challenges facing humanity. Could this image represent a potential synthesis, a recognition that the pursuit of earthly justice and the yearning for spiritual meaning are not mutually exclusive, but deeply intertwined? Could it be that true ethical living requires both a grounding in transcendent values and an active engagement in the messy realities of the human world? Is it possible that the most compelling moral compass is one that integrates the wisdom of both the sacred and the secular, allowing us to navigate the complexities of life with both spiritual depth and practical wisdom? The journey towards bridging the sacred and the secular is not an easy one. It requires humility, open-mindedness, and a willingness to engage in difficult dialogues across different worldviews. It demands that we move beyond simplistic dichotomies and embrace the rich complexity of the human experience. Perhaps the synthesis we seek is not about creating a uniform system of belief, but about fostering a shared moral imagination, one that is inspired by both the timeless truths of the spiritual traditions and the critical insights of human reason. Could it be that the path forward lies in recognizing the inherent dignity of every human being, a principle that resonates across both sacred and secular traditions, and building our ethical frameworks upon this shared foundation? Ultimately, the question is not whether the sacred and the secular must collide, but whether we have the courage and the wisdom to forge a path towards their harmonious coexistence, a synthesis that enriches our understanding of both the divine and the human, and empowers us to build a more just, compassionate, and meaningful world for all. Here we stand at a crossroads as ancient as Sinai and as contemporary as the latest headlines. The thunder of the Decalogue still echoes across the millennia, its pronouncements etched into the very bedrock of our moral consciousness. Alongside it, the measured ink of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a testament to humanity's hard-won consensus on fundamental dignity. Both ask the same piercing question, a question that reverberates in every human heart. How then shall we live? For those who walk by faith, divine law offers itself as a compass, a celestial navigation system pointing towards true north in a morally disorienting world. But does this compass allow for deviation, for the inevitable sway of human doubt? Does your faith, your deeply held conviction in a divinely ordained moral order, have room for the persistent doubter, the one who wrestles with the seemingly arbitrary commands, the one who echoes Euthyphro's haunting questions? Is there space within the sacred texts for the honest heretic, the one whose conscience leads them down paths that diverge from established dogma? Or does the unwavering certainty of divine law risk becoming a rigid cage, stifling the very spirit of inquiry and the personal search for truth? And for those who navigate life by the light of human reason, for the seekers who trust in the power of logic and empathy to chart a moral course, a different set of unsettling questions arise. If God is silent, if the heavens offer no definitive pronouncements on right and wrong, does that silence inevitably drown out the very possibility of objective morality? Does the absence of a divine legislator condemn us to a relativistic free-fall, where all values are equally valid, and moral choices become mere matters of personal preference? Or could it be that this very silence, this apparent absence of divine command, paradoxically frees human reason to sing new songs of compassion, to craft ethical frameworks that are truly our own, born from our shared humanity and our collective aspiration for a better world. Consider the lone hiker standing at that desert crossroads, the ancient tablets of the Decalogue looming on one side, the modern principles of the UN Charter etched on the other. Are these two paths destined to diverge into irreconcilable territories? Are these two paths territories? Or is there a hidden convergence? A shared destination that transcends the apparent differences in their origins? The narrator suggests that both journeys, however different their starting points, ultimately converge on the essential virtue of compassion. But is compassion alone a sufficient foundation for a robust ethical system? Can human empathy, however powerful, always provide clear and consistent guidance in the face of complex moral dilemmas? And if our sense of compassion is itself a product of evolution or cultural conditioning, does it possess the unwavering authority to condemn the most egregious acts of cruelty and injustice? Think about the inherent tension between divine authority and human autonomy. If morality is solely dictated from above, does it risk stifling our moral agency, reducing us to mere executors of a divine will? Conversely, if morality is solely a product of human reason, does it risk becoming a self-serving construct, vulnerable to the shifting sands of cultural trends and political ideologies? Is there a way to honor both the transcendent source of moral wisdom and the inherent capacity of human beings to reason and discern? Consider the image of a child drawing a globe, a fragile sphere cradled in small hands, adorned with intertwined religious symbols and secular emblems. Is this naive idealism, or does it represent a profound hope for a future where the divisions that have plagued humanity for centuries can be overcome by a shared commitment to ethical principles that transcend creed and ideology? Can we truly envision a world where the wisdom of the sacred traditions and the insights of secular humanism work in concert to build a more just and peaceful global community? The narrator wisely cautions that the law is a fire. Handle with care. This is true whether we speak of divine law, with its potential for both profound illumination and destructive zealotry, or of secular law, with its capacity for both upholding justice and perpetuating oppressions. Both require wisdom, discernment, and above all, humility in their interpretation and application. In the end, the ethical critiques we engage in should not be a battle for dominance, a zero-sum game where one side must triumph over the other. Instead, they should be a dance of humility, a recognition that the search for truth and the pursuit of goodness are ongoing journeys, requiring us to listen to diverse voices, to grapple with challenging questions, and to remain open to the possibility that wisdom can be found in unexpected places, whether we are guided by the ancient smoke of Sinai, a symbol of divine revelation, or by the steady light of human reason. The path forward demands one ancient virtue above all others: love. But what does this love truly entail? Is it merely a sentimental feeling, a warm and fuzzy emotion? Or does it demand a radical commitment to justice, a willingness to challenge the status quo, and an unwavering empathy for the suffering of others, even those we deem our enemies? As we reach the close of this reflection, let us listen to the fusion of Gregorian chant, a timeless expression of spiritual yearning, and a secular choir harmonizing the plea for peace. Dona nobis pacem. Can these seemingly disparate musical traditions find harmony? Can the sacred and the secular voices of humanity blend together in a common aspiration for peace and justice? The fading silence that follows invites us to contemplate our own place in this ongoing dialogue, to consider how we ourselves can contribute to building a world where justice flows like rivers and righteousness like a never-failing stream. A world where love in its truest and most radical sense ultimately guides our way. Thank you for wrestling alongside us with the profound questions of ethical foundations. If this journey into the heart of divine law and human reason has stirred your soul and ignited your curiosity, we invite you to join our community seeking deeper understanding and shared wisdom. What if the answers to life's most challenging moral dilemmas lie not in choosing sides, but in bridging the sacred and the secular? Subscribe now to continue this exploration. Share your own insights on navigating these complex ethical landscapes. And let us walk together, finding common ground in our shared human quest for meaning and a more just world. Like this video, if it sparked your thinking, comment with your own reflections and share it with others who dare to question and seek truth. Let's build a community where dialogue and understanding illuminate our path forward.